Saudi Crown Prince aiming to sign $90 billion in deals with the UK and more possibly from the US in the pipeline. Will this be the beginning of a wave of capital inflows for the kingdom? Joining us now is Aarthi Chandrasekaran. She's the SHUAA Capital Vice President of Banks and Financial Sector Coverage. Welcome back to the program.
Good morning, Yusuf.
We hear the number 90 billion, and maybe for some it's hard to put into context. And what we've done is we've pulled out the great ECTR Go function on the Bloomberg. We've put Saudi Arabia in there to see where the United Kingdom is currently with trade flows into Saudi Arabia. It's not in the top 5. It's not in the top 10. It's barely in the top 15. Trade flows in 2016 of just about $5 billion. So a jump to 90 billion would catapult it to the biggest trade partner possibly, or at least in the top 5. That would also mean that it would have a dramatic impact, arguably, to Saudi businesses. I mean, how are you interpreting that number and the visit?
Market is definitely anticipating a few $1 billion of deals, roughly between $90 to $100 billion, like you rightly said, to be signed and MOUs to be sealed. The way I look at it is it's very hard to predict the impact on the economy and banking sector in general up until we know what kind of deals are likely to be signed. The bigger picture as of we speak at the moment is nothing is likely to change in the banking sector fundamental story, because I would presume majority of these deals are going to happen out of UK. Even if there are going to be some of them happening back at home in Saudi, it's going to take some time for the numbers to trickle down. Yeah. But it is definitely a good news to the market. Yeah. There is a feel-good factor. Market will feel elated as and when you see these kind of news flows coming in. Business sentiments has improved. It will continue to improve on the back of these news flows.
The trade deals is one thing, but then you've got sentiment. So when you are seeing the Crown Prince in the UK and later on in the United States, with a political alliance that is reaffirmed and strengthened, that's going to give investors confidence as well, and that could help with inflows. It's not just the trade deals themselves. How much more money could trickle in off the back of this?
Like I said, you know, the end of February, we did see some kind of an intense correction in the market because of a lot of fundamental reason. But in the last couple of days, you have seen a big momentum in the market on the back of investors positioning themselves for FTSE emerging market inclusion, as well as this big news of him visiting the UK and the US for more trade deals. So sentiment-wise, it's bang on positive.
Yeah. So lenders could benefit, but it's not necessarily the major driver in the coming months from where you're standing. What about the rising rates? I mean, this is giving a lot of people like you a lot of excitement. They're going to be able to ride the coattails of those rising rates, aren't they?
I was actually expecting like everybody else in the market, but we also have to understand where the SIBOR is currently standing at the moment. Everybody in the market are talking about margin expansion for almost whole of the banking sector, in Saudi. But let's not forget, SIBOR has been under pressure since the beginning of the year, and the spread between SIBOR and LIBOR has actually turned negative. If this sustains for a period of time, for a couple of quarters, then the margin expansion story could cease to exist.
So who's likely to come out top as a winner here? We have some specific names.
For me, it's we would actually play this more as a technical story for Saudi, for at least for 2018. I wouldn't look fundamental stories yet to evolve for Saudi Arabia for this year. There is a weak credit appetite. Of course, you have news flows of a lot of trade flows coming in, and business sentiments are improving. But it will take a bit of time before we actually see some positive numbers coming in. So I would just play the index inclusion story, bang on to Al-Raji, likes of Al-Raji, Samba and CB are the ones that I would probably like.
So you play the inclusion story. Do you play the Saudi Aramco story in terms of a domestic listing that could bring a lot of not just foreign investor interest, but also a lot of liquidity into this market?
Correct. Logically, if you look at the way it has to be, it would be very difficult to quantify the kind of impact Saudi Aramco could get into the market. But logically, 95% of the Saudi Arabian market is retail-driven. So you will see a bit of migration from the other stocks to Saudi Aramco, but that's just one side of the story. The other side of the story comes from the institutional flows, and Saudi Aramco listing would actually double the Saudi weights in MSCI emerging market inclusion, and that would mean tremendous amount of flows coming in into the market.
Aarthi, it's always a pleasure having you on the program. Some fabulous insights there.
Thank you.
Aarthi Chandrasekaran from SHUAA Capital. Now let's talk about the Vanguard Group.